A year ago, my daughter tried to put me in a nursing home with the same calm efficiency she used to schedule dentist appointments for her kids. She sat across from me at my own kitchen table, pen poised, papers already highlighted, and told me it was for my safety. I signed something that day, not what she thought. 12 months later, I live in the same house, with the same quiet ticking clock and the same empty chair across from me. The revenge tasted sharp and clean in the moment, like cold water after a long fever. But revenge does not laugh with you at night. It does not bring soup when you are sick. It does not put a hand on your shoulder when the silence becomes heavy enough to feel like a weight. My name is Mike Donovan. I'm 69 years old. I'm a grandfather twice over. I'm retired from 42 years in the electrical trade. I buried my wife, Nora, 3 years ago. And now, I'm alone in a house big enough for a family that doesn't come here anymore. That's the part nobody warns you about. They tell you to stand up for yourself. They tell you not to let your children treat you like a wallet or a problem. They don't tell you what happens after you win. After you win, you sit in the quiet and realize the battle took your last threads of connection with it. So when I tell you I'm trying to find a wife, I'm not saying it like a punchline. I'm not trying to replace Nora. You don't replace 35 years with a person the way you replace a water heater. I'm trying to survive the rest of my life without becoming exactly what my daughter always called me when she thought I wasn't listening. A burden. And if you think a man my age has no business looking for love, let me tell you something. Loneliness is not gentle. It doesn't care how old you are or how proud you used to be. It creeps in slow, then it moves into your bones, and one morning you wake up and the quiet is so complete you start talking to the coffee maker just to hear a voice. That's when I knew I had to do something. Because if I didn't, the nursing home would get me in the end anyway. Just not the one my daughter picked. It started the way a lot of betrayals start, with the word help. My daughter Lauren came over one Saturday with a stack of pamphlets and the kind of determined smile that looks loving until you've lived long enough to recognize it as control. She didn't come alone. She brought her husband, Kyle, who stayed near the doorway like a security guard, pretending not to listen. She brought my grandkids too, because nothing makes an old man agree faster than a child climbing into his lap. Lauren put the pamphlets down like she was laying out a plan for my future. "Dad," she said, soft and patient, "we've been talking. We think it's time." "What's time?" I asked. She opened the first brochure. Sunlit patios, smiling seniors, a woman with silver hair holding a teacup like she was in a commercial. "Assisted living," she said. "It's not a nursing home. It's a community." I remember the way she said community, like she was offering me a gift. Then she slid another sheet forward. A form. Power of attorney. "This is just in case," she said. "You know, if anything happens." If anything happens. I looked at the form and I saw the truth sitting there in black ink. If anything happens, she controls everything. My house, my accounts, my choices, my life. I didn't yell. I didn't slam my fist on the table. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. I'd been raised by a father who taught me that anger is a tool, not a reflex. So I smiled back. I nodded like I was thinking it over, and in my chest, something very old and very hard clicked into place. Because this wasn't the first time Lauren had tried to steer me. After Nora died, Lauren started calling every day. At first I thought it was love. Then I realized the calls always came with questions. How are you feeling? Did you pay your bills? Are you keeping up with the yard? Are you remembering your medication? It was a slow campaign to build a picture of me as unstable. Then came the accidental changes. She offered to help with my banking because online passwords were confusing. She offered to organize my paperwork because grief made people forget things. She started showing up with groceries I didn't ask for, and then mentioning casually that maybe I didn't know what I needed anymore. The day she brought those brochures, I finally understood the end goal. She didn't want to help me. She wanted to move me out and sell my house. This house was paid off. The neighborhood had gotten expensive. A for sale sign here would have meant 6 figures in her pocket, maybe more, depending on how fast she moved. And she was moving fast, so I decided I would move faster. I called an elder law attorney named Frank Rinaldi on Monday morning. I found him the old-fashioned way. One careful recommendation from a retired foreman I trusted, followed by one quiet consultation where Frank didn't talk down to me. Frank listened. He didn't look at me like I was fragile. He looked at me like I was a man trying to protect himself. When I told him about the power of attorney form, he leaned forward. "Did you sign anything?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not yet." Frank nodded once. "Then you're ahead of the game." He gave me a plan so simple it felt almost cruel. "Get her to say it," he told me. "Get her to say what she intends to do. Don't argue. Don't fight. Just let her talk." So I set the stage. I invited Lauren and Kyle back over the next weekend. I told them I'd thought about it and I wanted to discuss options. Lauren arrived with a folder so thick it looked like she'd been preparing for a trial. I had prepared too. I'd installed a small camera in the corner of the kitchen. Nothing dramatic, just a little black square on top of the cabinet facing the table. Most people never notice those things unless they're looking for them. Lauren wasn't looking for anything except a signature. She launched into her speech again, smoother this time, more practiced. She talked about my falls. I hadn't fallen. She talked about my confusion. I wasn't confused. She talked about burdening the children. My grandchildren were 7 and 9. They weren't burdened by anything except homework and vegetables. Then she reached the part where she got impatient. "Dad," she said, voice tightening, "we're trying to do this the easy way." I kept my face calm. "What's the hard way?" I asked. Kyle finally stepped closer. "We can petition," he said, like he'd rehearsed it. "If it comes to that." "Petition for what?" I asked. Lauren's eyes flashed. The mask slipped for half a second, just long enough. "For guardianship," she said. "If you won't cooperate, we'll have to protect you from yourself." There it was. Protect you from yourself. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence hang. Lauren mistook it for surrender. She pushed the papers forward again. "Sign," she said. I picked up the pen. Then I did something she didn't expect. I slid my own paper out from under the table. A simple document, not flashy, just a revocation notice, stating that no one had any authority over my affairs except me, and that any attempts to coerce or manipulate me would be documented and challenged. Frank had written it. I had signed it already. I placed it on the table between us. Lauren stared at it like it was a snake. "What is that?" she demanded. "A boundary," I said. Kyle's face darkened. "You can't." "I can," I said. "And I am." Lauren's voice rose. "You're being stubborn. You're being difficult. Dad, you don't understand how this works." I nodded slowly. "Then explain it," I said. "Explain why you need guardianship if you're only trying to help." Her eyes flicked to the cabinet, to the corner where the camera sat. I watched her look without realizing she'd looked. And I watched her realize. She stood so fast the chair scraped the tile. "You're recording me," she said, accusing. I didn't deny it. "I'm protecting myself," I replied. She stepped around the table like she was going to rip the paper in half. Kyle moved too, and for one ugly moment I saw the shape of what they could do if they chose violence. That was when my phone rang. Frank had told me to time it. I answered on speaker. "Hello?" "Mike," Frank said calmly. "Are they there?" "Yes," I said. Frank's voice stayed steady. "Lauren, Kyle, this is Frank Rinaldi. I represent Mike Donovan. You have been recorded threatening guardianship as a means to take control of his assets. Any further attempt to coerce him will be treated as elder abuse and pursued accordingly." Lauren's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Kyle's jaw tightened. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. Frank didn't argue. "Leave the property," he said. "Now." And for the first time in my life, I watched my daughter hesitate because she realized the power had shifted away from her. They left. The kids didn't even get to say goodbye properly. Lauren grabbed their backpacks like they were luggage and hustled them out. My grandson looked back at me from the driveway, confused and scared. That look stayed with me longer than any satisfaction I felt. The rest happened fast, like dominoes. Frank filed the necessary paperwork to block any guardianship petition unless it came with legitimate medical evidence. I scheduled my own cognitive evaluation with a specialist Frank recommended. I passed easily. Then we discovered Lauren had already been helping with my finances more than she admitted. There were withdrawals I hadn't made, transfers I hadn't authorized, a credit card in my name I'd never seen, elder financial exploitation. Ugly words, real consequences. I didn't have her arrested, not because she didn't deserve it, but because I couldn't stomach seeing my grandkids watch their mother taken away. Instead, I did something colder. I cut her off completely. No access, no keys, no accounts, no leverage. And when she tried to smear me publicly, to tell family friends I was losing my mind, Frank sent one letter to the right people. It included one screenshot of her text messages to Kyle about getting Dad out before winter so we can list the house. The calls stopped after that. The sympathy shifted. Her story collapsed. That was my revenge. Clean, surgical, effective. And when it was over, there was nothing left in the house but me. The first month alone felt like victory. I ate what I wanted. I watched what I wanted. I went to bed when I wanted. By the third month, the quiet started to feel like punishment. By the sixth month, I found myself standing in the hallway outside my granddaughter's old guest room, staring at the empty bed, remembering the last time she'd stayed over and begged me to read the same story twice. By the time a full year passed, I realized something I didn't want to admit. I had saved my life, and I had lost it too. So I started looking for a way back into the world. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't heroic. It was small, humiliating steps. I joined a senior center that met in the basement of a church 3 blocks away. The first day I walked in, I almost turned around and left. There were folding chairs, a coffee urn, people laughing too loud, like they were trying to prove they weren't lonely. A man with suspenders waved me over. "First time?" he asked. I nodded. "Name's Mike." "Stan," he said, gripping my hand like it mattered. "Sit. Coffee's terrible, but the company's decent." I sat. I listened. I nodded at stories about bad knees and worse kids. Then I saw her. She wasn't trying to be noticed. She sat near the wall, hands folded in her lap, posture straight, eyes watchful. She had silver-streaked, dark hair pulled back neatly and the kind of calm face that had lived through something. When Stan followed my gaze, he leaned in. "That's Evelyn," he whispered. "Widow. Used to be a nurse. Smart as they come. Don't let her quiet fool you." I didn't approach her that day. I went home and stared at my empty kitchen again, and I thought about how easy it was to die in stages without anyone noticing. The next week, I went back, and I sat closer. When the meeting ended, I finally walked over. "Evelyn," I said, because I'd heard someone say her name. "I'm Mike, new." She studied me for a moment like she was reading a chart. "Mike Donovan," she said. "You're the man who doesn't like being told what to do." The words landed with enough accuracy that I almost smiled. "Is that my reputation already?" I asked. "It's in your shoulders," she said. "Men who've been pushed around either collapse or stiffen. You've stiffened." I didn't know what to say to that, so I told the truth. "My daughter tried to put me away," I said quietly. "I stopped her. Now I'm here." Evelyn's eyes softened just a little. "I'm sorry," she said, and I could tell she meant it. Not the polite kind of sorry, the kind that recognizes a wound. I walked home that day feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness. Not even hope yet. Just the faintest sense that maybe I wasn't invisible. Then the second shoe dropped, because loneliness makes people reach. And reaching makes you vulnerable. It happened after Stan showed me a dating site on his phone. Don't laugh, he warned. Half of them are scams, but the other half are just lonely. Like us. Lonely like us. That phrase got me. So I went home, sat at my computer, and made a profile. I didn't pretend to be younger. I didn't use filters. I put the truth. Retired electrician, grandfather, widower, likes early mornings and quiet evenings, not interested in games. 2 days later, a message came in from a woman named Carla. Her picture looked professional, almost too perfect. Her words were warm. She said she admired men who stood up for themselves. She said she believed in second chances. I should have seen the warning signs. But the first message was like a hand reaching through the silence. So I answered. We talked for a week. Then she suggested meeting for dinner. A restaurant downtown. Expensive. The kind of place Lauren used to drag me to when she wanted something and needed to remind me what nice looked like. I almost said no. Then I heard my own house creak with emptiness, and I said yes. I wore my good jacket, the one Nora liked. I drove downtown with a tight knot in my stomach that felt like a teenager's nerves. Carla wasn't there when I arrived. Instead, a man in a suit approached my table. Mr. Donovan? He asked. Yes, I said, confused. I'm with Crescent Care Solutions, he said smoothly. Carla asked me to meet you. She got held up. Crescent Care. The words hit me like cold water. It wasn't a dating profile. It was an ambush. The man placed a folder on the table like Lauren had done a year ago. Inside were glossy pamphlets, assisted living, memory care. Supportive services. My throat tightened. Who sent you? I asked, voice low. The man smiled like I was difficult but manageable. We help families navigate transitions, he said. Sometimes seniors resist. It's normal. I looked around the restaurant. People eating, talking, laughing. Nobody was watching the quiet trap being set at my table. Then he said the words that told me exactly what this was. We already have a referral, he said. A concerned family member. Concerned family member. Lauren. My hands went cold. I leaned forward. Tell Carla to show her face, I said. He didn't even blink. Mr. Donovan, there's no need for hostility. Stand up, I said quietly. He frowned. Excuse me? Stand up, I repeated. My voice didn't rise, but something in it must have changed, because he stood automatically. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, already recording. I want you to say your name again, I said. He hesitated. Sir. Say it, I said. He said it. I made him spell it. I made him state his company clearly. Then I smiled, and it was the kind of smile that comes after you've been hunted once and learned how to become the hunter instead. Perfect, I said. Now tell me why you're here. His expression tightened. I already explained. Explain again, I said. On the record. He looked around, suddenly aware. I stood too. Because if you're here under false pretenses, I said calmly, that's fraud. And if you're here because my daughter's trying to manufacture a case against me, that's harassment. And I have an attorney who loves this kind of thing. The man's smile slipped. I pushed the folder back toward him. Take it, I said. And take your scam with you. It's not a scam, he snapped, finally losing patience. I held up my phone. Then you won't mind explaining it to the licensing board, I said. He grabbed the folder, hissed something under his breath, and walked away. I stood there in the middle of that expensive restaurant, surrounded by people who had no idea what almost happened. My hands shook as I sat back down. I stared at the empty chair across from me, where Carla never existed, and I felt something else under the fear. Rage. Not wild rage, not yelling rage. The slow, bright rage of a man realizing his daughter was still trying to finish what she started, even after she lost the first time. I drove home in silence and made one call. Frank. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "She's persistent," he said. "She's not done," I replied. "No," Frank agreed. "She isn't." That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared of a nursing home. I was scared of the truth beneath it. Lauren didn't want me safe. She wanted me gone, and she was willing to use anything. Lies, tricks, fake profiles, paid referrals. She was willing to make me look unstable by provoking me. So I did the one thing she couldn't predict. I refused to react the way she wanted. I did it the way I did electrical work for decades. Methodical, quiet, documented. I called the state licensing agency for home care and senior placement services. I filed a complaint with names, times, and recordings. I wrote down everything. I asked for the paper trail. Then I did something else. I started building a life that didn't depend on Lauren's presence at all. Because even if I beat her again, I didn't want my life to be defined by fighting my own child. The senior center became routine. Stan introduced me to men who played cards badly but laughed honestly. A retired teacher named Malcolm invited me to a Saturday morning walking group. A woman named Denise taught a class on basic cooking for widowers and divorcees, and for the first time since Nora, I learned how to make something that didn't taste like sadness. And Evelyn stayed, steady. She didn't chase me. She didn't flirt like a teenager. She sat next to me sometimes. She asked questions that mattered. One afternoon after a meeting, she walked with me to my car. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine," I replied automatically. She stopped and faced me. "Mike," she said, "I've watched men deny their own pain until it turns into bitterness. Don't do that." The words hit hard because they were true. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I stared at my steering wheel, my hands clenched. "She's still trying," I admitted. "My daughter. I thought I ended it. But she won't let it go." Evelyn nodded once. "Some people can't stand losing control," she said. "They'd rather burn the relationship than accept they can't own you." I swallowed. "She used my grandkids to get close," I said quietly. "And when I fought back, I lost them too." Evelyn didn't rush to comfort me. She just stood there, present. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I lost my son," she said softly. I looked up, startled. Evelyn's gaze stayed forward, like she was looking through the past. "Car accident," she continued. "A drunk driver. My husband died 2 years later. Not from illness, from emptiness." The air between us changed. The world felt quieter. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Evelyn finally looked at me. "That's why I'm here," she said. "Because if I stay alone too long, I start believing the silence is all there is." Something in my chest loosened. We didn't call it love that day. We didn't make promises. We didn't pretend two damaged lives fit perfectly together. But we started small. Coffee after the meetings, a walk on Sunday afternoons, a trip to a farmer's market where she bought apples and I carried the bag. And slowly the house stopped feeling like a tomb. Not because Nora's absence disappeared. It never will. But because there was new sound in it. One evening, months after the restaurant ambush, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Hello?" A small voice came through, hesitant. "Grandpa?" My breath caught. It was my grandson, Ben. I sat down hard at the kitchen table. "Ben," I whispered, How? Mom's in the shower, he said quickly, voice urgent like a kid doing something brave and illegal. She doesn't know I'm calling. I I found your number in Dad's phone. Kyle's phone. My hands started shaking. Are you okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I miss you, he said, simple and raw. Mom says you're mean. She says you hate her. But I don't think that's true. My throat tightened. Words piled up, but none of them came out clean. I don't hate her, I finally said. I hate what she tried to do. There was a pause. Then Ben whispered, She's always mad now. I closed my eyes. That was the part of revenge that still burned. Not what Lauren lost. What my grandkids were living inside. Listen to me, I said gently. You can call me anytime, even if it's just to say hello. I can't, he said, voice breaking. If she finds out, she'll take my phone. I swallowed hard. Then you remember something, I said. You remember I love you. You remember this is not your fault. Another pause. Then he whispered, Okay, like he was holding back tears. The line clicked. I sat there staring at the phone for a long time. When Evelyn came over later with a container of soup she insisted was medicinal, she found me at the table, quiet. She didn't push. She set the soup down, then sat across from me. Do you want to tell me, she asked, or do you want me to just sit? For the first time in a long time, I didn't pretend. I want you to sit, I said. So she did, and the silence wasn't punishment anymore. It was shared. That's the ending people expect, I think. The revenge story where the villain gets what they deserve and the hero walks away smiling. Life doesn't do clean endings. Lauren didn't apologize. She didn't suddenly become humble. She didn't show up at my door crying and admit she was wrong. What happened instead was quieter and in some ways harder. She lost the power to control me. She didn't lose her life. She didn't lose her children. She didn't lose her freedom. She lost access. And for someone like Lauren, that was the deepest consequence. As for me, I didn't get my old family back, but I built something new. Stan still calls me every Thursday to remind me about cards, even though I've never once forgotten. Malcolm texts me photos of his ridiculous attempts at gardening. Denise still corrects my seasoning like she's saving the world one meal at a time. And Evelyn is in my kitchen now more often than she isn't. The first time she stayed overnight, we didn't make it dramatic. No speeches, no grand declarations. She simply set her toothbrush next to mine, looked at the empty chair that used to face me every morning, and said, I don't want you eating alone anymore. I stood there, throat tight, and nodded because if I spoke I would have cracked apart. I'm not naive. I know what age brings. I know time isn't promised. I know my life could still end in a quiet room someday. But I also know this. My daughter tried to put me in a nursing home to erase me early. She failed. And the best revenge I ever got wasn't watching her plans collapse. It was waking up one morning, hearing someone moving around in my house, smelling coffee brewing, and realizing I'd found a reason to keep going that wasn't fueled by anger. I'm still Mike Donovan, still stubborn, still a grandfather, still a man who will not be moved like furniture. But now, when I sit at my kitchen table, the chair across from me isn't empty and the quiet doesn't win.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.